Hi, this presentation is over government control of public education for the school law class. I'm Jada Conley, and I have been teaching for 24 years in USD 380. The last 9 of those years have been in second grade, but I have also taught third and fourth grade and done some title over the years. I've been a dance coach for 23 years in our building and am currently a member of our district leadership team and our building leadership team. I've been on the district team for 5 years. This will be going into six through an entire KISA cycle, and now we're ready to start a new one. And then I'm also a member of the Accreditation Advisory Council with KSDE. Next week, I will be married 25 years to the man you see in that family picture over there, who is also a social studies teacher at the same building. And then we have 2 kids you can see there. They both attend Kansas State University, and our daughter is studying secondary English education, and my son is studying computer engineering. So, in my free time, when I am not with my family or engrossed in something within school, I teach religion to high school kids on Wednesday nights during the school year. I love to read. I love to crochet. I love to take walks, listen to music. And I am kind of a sci-fi nerd, so I can easily be found catching up on some old Star Trek or Doctor Who or pretty much anything in that vein. We are here to talk about government and public schools today, and we'll start with just the levels of government. So the federal government is kind of the top level, and there are 3 main entities that help provide funding to the public school system. One is the Department of Education, the U.S. Department of Education, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which helps provide funding for the school lunch programs, and then the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, which helps to provide Head Start money. The federal side of education accounts for 8 to 10-ish% of the funding that our local school districts receive. The duties and responsibilities in the center there are to provide equal access to all students, to provide resources to those students with needs, help educational systems pursue high quality research so that we can find out kind of what works best for kids, and then also to support schools and states towards improvement. And oftentimes that could include things like data collection and helping interpret and disaggregate that data. So on our last little sticky note there, you can see that I've included that many of the umbrella of the federal government falls within kind of the 10th and the 14th Amendments. The 10th Amendment that tells us that anything the federal government does not make the decisions on then goes to the hands of the state. And then also the 14th Amendment, which is where our civil rights come from, which helps with the equal access part of their responsibilities. The 5 bullet points below that are just 5 examples of actual laws or guidance provided by the federal government right now that we use currently in schools. So we have the ESSA, which is the replacement of the No Child Left Behind, Civil Rights Act, the IDEA, which kind of helps provide for those different needs. Things like your IEPs can fall under those. FERPA, which can be a great resource for families and parents. Yes, families and parents. And then also the What Works Clearinghouse, which that is actually the research part of what our educational system can give us. The Institute of Educational Sciences paired with the U.S. Department of Ed, and they have been providing research for educators, parents, anyone who wants to log on, and also things like guides and even examples of things. So if you have not checked that out yet, I highly recommend that site. At the state level, we have a Kansas legislature, of course, that is making some of the policy decisions or approving things for systems in general. The head entity, of course, is the State Department of Ed, and which, of course, I have abbreviated there as just KSDE. So in our Department of Ed, we have 10 elected members that represent all areas of the state, and then those members have an appointed commissioner who also is part of their kind of panel of work there. So in the center, again, you see the duties and responsibilities at the state level. We have providing and allocating funds to the local systems. Number two, to adopt and maintain the curricular standards. Three, the accreditation of schools and systems. For certification of teachers, administrators, I believe even things like school nurses, making sure that the certification and are all approved for those positions. And then also to administer and help kind of oversee that state laws and state legislation is being followed in those local systems. Under the laws and guidance, you will see 5 examples again of how those duties and responsibilities are carried out. The Kansas curricular standards, which are for all different subject areas throughout public education, give us the kind of framework of what we need to be teaching in our classrooms. The KISA acronym there is the process that we use for the accreditation of our schools and our systems. We have the MTSS and Dyslexia Initiative, which our state gives us the guidance to help us know how to use universal screeners and data to determine what kind of systems we need to have in place for students and how much support they need at different levels of their education. And then, of course, the teacher licensure system, that is a great example of the certification part of our state government. At the local level, we have our own school board at the local level. And that school board, of course, is elected by the patrons of the district. And then they are responsible for hiring our superintendent, who also sits with them in some of those administrative decisions. The duties and responsibilities of local school boards can be things like to oversee and develop the school policies, to adopt and allocate budgets, to adopt the curriculum, hire the faculty, to accept the collective bargaining agreements, and then overall operations management. So they're helping to do a lot of the things that allow the teachers to actually go in and teach, which is fantastic. Some specific examples that I know are very recent just in our personal district. We just recently updated a policy like the tobacco and drug use policy. To reflect changes that have happened either locally or kind of things that have been going on. And on the curriculum side of it, so we have one of our jobs, of course, at the local level is to make sure that your curriculum is something that actually matches up with what the state level is telling us to choose. And so the adoption of our Wonders Curriculum K-5 is a great example of how our board adopted the curriculum that we can use to carry out those state standards. We did just hire a new superintendent, and that was one example of hires that have been made this spring in our district that the school board was in charge of. We finished negotiations within the last month. And so our bargaining group is the USD 380 educators, and they met with the school board, of course, and agreements were decided, and we were able to do our negotiations for the year. And then one of the things that we have been working on as far as operations management goes, it's not only just the regular day-to-day stuff, but like sometimes it involves building projects. And so we right now are in the middle of looking at plans for when we can possibly do something like build a new concession stand in our building. There we go. So let's talk specifically about my school board and oh my goodness, I'm moving all over the place. How the policies, Stop. There we go. We're going to back up a slide. Okay, so district demographics. Our district is kind of unique. It is split between two counties. So we have a district office that's kind of right near the county line between Marshall and Nemaha counties. And it is our pre-K building and our central office. And then we have two K-12 buildings, one in Marshall County, one in Nemaha County, and they're about 17 miles apart. And then total from our 3-year-olds clear through the seniors in both buildings, we have about 625 total students. Our school board has 7 elected members. There are 3 from one side, 3 from the other side, and then 1 at-large position. And then, of course, they have appointed and hired the superintendent. As we look at our policies and how our school board kind of has addressed some issues, the first question was, how does the school board promote success? And so these are our current school board goals: to ensure a well-rounded curriculum for all students, effective communication and relationships with the community, long-term facilities and operation plans, a technology plan, and recruit, retain, and train a high quality staff. And so looking at those board goals, I feel like it covers so many of the areas that we know are important to make sure that we're all successful. The area of communication with our board policies, we have several different ways that communication is handled throughout the district. We have a district website that stays fairly up to date, even in these strange times we've had the last couple of years. We also have district social media accounts via Facebook and Twitter, and both of the K-12 buildings, and I do believe the pre-K have their own as well. So sometimes messages might get put in multiple places, which just makes it easier for people to access. The monthly school board meetings, of course, are public meetings, and there is room for some physical attendance, but also a link where you can live stream and watch them, just so you can stay informed. We have district emails that go out to all patrons that are signed up for them, and also text alerts, which are excellent for parents and teachers and students to know when things like weather or other random things cause changes in our school schedule. On the technology end, we do have a strategic plan for technology, and on our school website, we have an entire tab devoted to the different areas of our strategic plans. And the current strategic plans are in the middle of their 5-year cycle. We also have within our policies and our student and parent handbook the acceptable use and technology agreement that were approved by our school board. For operations systems, in our policy book, under our fiscal management category, there were numerous things that fall under fiscal management. 3 great examples are just budget planning, handling fees and payments for students, parents, but also what to do when a gift or donation is given to the school or the district, and even things like purchase requisitions. They handle that through the fiscal management portion of our policy book. And then in section E, under the business management section, falls things like the safety and security within our buildings and building maintenance, everything from cleaning supplies and our summer cleaning to making sure that the building is safe and that we don't need to do any projects or maintenance to keep it up. And then our transportation services, we own our own buses and have our own transportation services, so that falls within there. And then also information about food services. So kind of this page here, I feel like our operation systems again covers all of the things that are important so that I can walk into my classroom and teach my kids every day. As far as data-driven support systems, our district and our board has approved for MTSS, for example, using a universal screener for all students to help identify students in reading and math who need extra support. We have student improvement teams in place that meet monthly to support students. IEP services, of course, we use that for data-driven support. And then also just graduation requirements that we are following, that our board has in the policy book to follow based on our state guidance. The laws and policies that support success for all students in Section J of our school policies. Under the students, we have examples of laws and policies, conduct policies, dress conduct, behavior conduct, substance abuse policies. There are policies and supports for harassment and bullying situations, but also health and wellness, pretty much anything you can possibly think of. We have policies listed in our student section. And then in our personnel section, we are looking after the greater good of all of our adults that are within our system. So again, harassment and bullying policies, how we handle leave, whether it's personal, professional, medical, and then even things like the responsibilities of teachers and coaches, so that we as employees have a place to look back and refer to anything we might have questions on, and how the district has set their policies up. My own personal experiences with these three levels, it was interesting to think through this. So at the federal level, I have actually used the What Works Clearinghouse to read and research classroom practices for math. And then looking back into it as I prepared these slides, I went ahead and bookmarked the spot to remind myself to go back and look up so many other things. I don't have any direct experiences as far as being a part of something nationally. But of course, I know that every day that trickle down effect comes into just my teaching practices. At the State Department, of course, my experiences would be renewing my teaching license, using all the resources on the KSDE website, which again, digging into it for this assignment, I found so many more resources I forgot were there. Being a district leadership team member, I was a big part of helping with the reporting and the paperwork part of the KISA accreditation process. And like I mentioned before, I now sit on the Accreditation Advisory Council at KSDE. At the local level, I'm on those leadership teams. I have attended board meetings, presented at board meetings at times, and then now throughout the years, and of course, now that I've looked a lot closer at them, being able to use and refer to any of the policies and procedures that the district has set in place. So for standards correlation with the operations and management, I think that my previous slides show how those operations and management are divided between the three levels. And then the section with my own district shows my my ability, or my ability to actually look and determine where each of those things fall throughout our policy manual. When I prioritize these, I think it's kind of hard because I think you need to have them all. But I guess I would start with maybe the management, because if you have good management systems in place, the other things are able to happen. Operations systems, I think, if you're not complying with all the regulation and the guidance, and your operation systems, again, if they're primarily there to make sure I can walk in and do my job, I need those things in place. So they become very important. Communication, of course, in the world we live in today happens all the time. And so it is crucial, and even more crucial that it's handled in a correct and positive way. And then I put technology last, I think, because we could function without those things when, the power goes out. Schools functioned without technology. But I think in the 21st century, it is a vital part of what we do. But it actually is a part of all of those systems. So rather than prioritize it, and I stuck it last because I think it's actually just threaded into everything else that we do. The relevancy for me, I think this was relevant to me because as a classroom teacher and literacy leader, I need to understand where policy and best practices are developed. But as a DLT and BLT member, I need to be knowledgeable enough that I can help make decisions that could impact my district. And then as I sit on that AAC, I need to know policy to help me be a better contributor to that council. By looking at those multiple resources and creating slides that sort out those responsibilities, I definitely have a better understanding of each level, and also a better knowledge of what resources I can consult as I have more questions or continue learning. So, taking time to dig into my district policies also was very important for giving me kind of the knowledge of where to go. And finally, in my reflection, I would say that this assignment provided me with the resources I can use to answer questions as I continue to learn. And although my daily teaching practices in a second grade classroom might not alter drastically, learning where to access resources is super helpful. But as a school leader, I can see this being influential in several ways. First, I think it's very important that I start attending, even via virtually, more board meetings and kind of understanding what's happening and listen to the discussions. Second, as a literacy leader, I think understanding policies at our level and at KSDE will help me as I learn literacy practices and help others in our building with literacy practices. And then finally, again, as an AAC member, I will be a much better participant in those discussions. There are some references. And then I need to end by giving credits to Slides Mania for this awesome bulletin board presentation. Thank you.